Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This time I'll be making a box joint jig for my table saw, which will be the first jig I've ever made for a table saw. Here I'm just cutting down some 3/4 inch plywood, cutting some strips for the edges of the jig, keeping my fingers out of the way of that blade. And just sizing the sides down. I'm sure that some of you guys are going to say in the comments that I didn't need to have 4 walls, and I totally realize that now. But for some reason I thought that you would need to have 4 sides when I was designing this. My intuition was wrong. One side probably would have been plenty. So this is much stronger than it needs to be and took a little bit more time. But in the end, it's not a big deal. It's all a learning experience. Now all I'm doing here is gluing the pieces together, pre-drilling the holes, and putting in some 1 3/4 screws. All the while making sure everything is square. And of course that the back side is at a perfect 90-degree angle, which is obviously the most important part of this whole jig. Checking the box for square. If you go from corner to corner on each of the opposite corners and they're each the same distance, then you're good. Here I am planing down some oak, which will become my runners to fit into the miter slots in my table saw. You can see there that they move smoothly, and they're tight but not too tight. Squaring up the runners on the jig. Again, everything has to be perpendicular and parallel, respectively. And after I installed the first runner, I can go back and mark out where the second runner goes and install that one. Gluing an extra sheet to the front, which probably wasn't necessary. And here I am gluing a few layers onto the back where I'll be standing. Now unfortunately I didn't have my air compressor on me this day, so I'm pre-drilling some holes and just using some finished nails. Making my first cut into the jig. Now I need to space it out. That tape measure obviously wasn't that important. Now I'm making this cut here with 1/8 of an inch in between each of the cuts. That way when you're making your box joint cuts, there's 1/8 of an inch in between each of your fingers. This is where I'm cutting a 1/8 inch thick piece of oak. And that will fit nicely right in the slot that I cut out for it. And I'm sure a lot of you guys already understand how the jig works, but just in case you don't, you make one cut and then you move that cut onto the pin, and you make another cut and then you move that cut onto the pin, and so on and so forth until you reach the end of the board. And then you repeat the process on your next board, and then the two should interlock. Now, this is my first attempt at it, and it worked out pretty well. I actually went back and made an adjustment on where the pin is. I put a piece of paper to kind of wedge it out just a little bit farther, and then when I ran my next set of cuts, the box joints fit much tighter, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. One thing you want to be aware of is that you need to keep your fingers obviously above the height of the blade. Now, overall, this is a pretty safe system. Just make sure that your fingers are above the height of that blade. And you can see there, nice and tight, just like you want it, but still with enough space for glue. All right, thanks for watching, guys. And look forward to a video very soon where I'm going to be making a garden bed using this box joint jig.